To blast or not to blast. Blastity blast, e-shot blast. We've all heard it, and we're here to talk about it today. And I'm really excited for this edition of Email Never Sleeps because I have a colleague of mine, Courtney Martin, who I've known for 16 years. And believe it or not, she's still talking to me, and we are still engaging because of my personality. So, Courtney, welcome to Email Never Sleeps. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and why you're still talking to me.
It's crazy that I am still talking to you. No, I'm just kidding. Hi, everyone. I'm Courtney. I have, I've been in the email space for longer than the 16 years I've known Andrew, which means I was a toddler when I started, obviously. I started off, working for a, a car dealership doing their e-marketing and using Constant Contact for our list of 1,500 people or something.
Yeah.
And over the years I've upgraded slightly. I've used all of the major ESPs. Andrew and I worked together
Mm-hmm.
eons ago at Sears,
Mm-hmm.
which was my first real foray into actual email marketing.
Yeah.
But honestly, I was there for a long time, and it was probably to this day still one of the most sophisticated email programs I've actually ever worked for. And
Mm-hmm.
over time, I've just continued to work in email, and now I work for a company called Shift Paradigm, and just continuing to help clients. I'm now no longer the client; I help them.
Awesome. And I think you sold yourself a little short. First of all, RIP to Sears. I was back there with you, and you're right. They are a very sophisticated program. So no matter what anybody thinks about the brand, man, they were doing some amazing stuff. And then you actually ended up leading the program, which I think is pretty awesome. So I'm going to make a statement. And we're going to start talking about email blasting. And for you email purists out there, um, don't hold it against me. Don't ask with pitchforks to come and debate me on the use of the word blast or how offended you are. But still to this day, people use the terms, let's do email blasting. And everyone has this connotation of negativity around it. And, oftentimes we think of the word blast and probably don't associate it with the segmentation or the personalization or whatever. And that that term is bastardized, right? And you and I, Courtney, kind of chatted back and forth before we recorded this. And I'm curious, you chose the topic. You
I did.
chose the term to blast or not to blast. And so tell me a little bit about why you chose it and what's your opinion of it.
Okay, so back when, again, I was a wee young thing, and I
Yeah.
actually worked for you.
Yeah.
You opened my eyes to the concept of blast is a bad 5-letter word, right? um, and over the years, I think at the time I didn't fully understand, and I thought, God, this guy's a little bit crazy, and like he's
Yeah.
evangelizing to everyone that he talks to, and right, like at the time you were a little bit out there, but whatever.
Yeah.
Over time, I have come to appreciate your point of view, and I really do think that the term is a little bit of a naughty word because
Yeah.
what it conveys to me
Yeah.
is lack of strategy.
Mm-hmm.
You're blasting. It's a bomb that you're putting out into the world,
Yep.
and everyone is going to see it. But what
Yep.
it doesn't say to me is you're hyper personalized, you're hyper strategic, you're doing dynamic content. It just says everyone's seeing this.
Yes. Sure.
And
Yeah.
it seems a bit lazy.
Absolutely. It's funny. I make fun of the word blast. I still never use it in a situation when we start talking to clients, right? Like, hey, when's the next blast going to go out?
Right.
Um, Type of stuff. But I got to be honest with you, right? I hear this term a lot, and I know that there are some people that will die on the hill, right? Around this. And yet the converse or the opposite of all of this is everyone preaches this personalized, individualized, however, segmented, dynamic content. And I've not seen a lot of long-term case studies that show that the value of personalization and individualization and dynamic content and the tough stuff that we talk about as strategists that it's really paid off. And so I kind of like, maybe my time has changed, or my personality has changed over the last 20 or so years, or 16 years so years. Like if someone wants to use the word blast with me, I'm like, okay. Like it's not a big deal, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna take up arms, like some people. But 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 you can use that term, right? And still have a pretty amazing program. Let's talk about using the word blast and actually doing personalization, right? I mean, I think it's a term and people tend to hate it. But so tell me, what was that change for you over the years where you're like, it's kind of a dirty word.
Well, I do think there is a time and a place for a blast, right? I agree. I believe in personalization. I believe in segmentation, but I also think if you're a B2C company and you have a family and friends event, send
Yeah.
everyone the family and friends event. Send everyone the Black Friday deals event, right?
Mhm.
Those to me are blasts.
Yeah.
If you start to think about, oh, I really want to, how about here's an example.
Yeah.
A lot of companies, hopefully all companies at this point, have a preference center, right? I
Yeah.
don't know practically any that are using it correctly. You should
Yeah.
use a preference center to deliver the appropriate content to people, right?
Right.
So when you say, what's the thing that changed your mind? It was,
Yeah.
I think, constantly seeing,
Yeah.
well, we're saying we're doing the right thing. We're saying we're
Yeah.
delivering personalized content, but we're actually not. Because if
Yeah.
you were, you would be delivering content to people based on either what they've told you that they actually want to receive,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
that they have shown you that they want to receive based on engagement within previous campaigns,
Yeah.
right? At its most basic. So I think when you have specifically in a B2C environment, if you have a big promotion,
Yeah.
it is appropriate to blast it out to everyone.
Okay.
But within the customer life cycle, and this is B2B, B2C, everyone within
Mm-hmm.
that life cycle, and depending on where you are, you
Mm-hmm.
should be receiving content specific to you, or specific at least to your segment.
Right. Right.
And I have seen it work. No, so you're saying you haven't really seen
I haven't
any.
seen anything public. I haven't seen anything public unless you're
Oh,
on the inside, right? And
sure.
you see
Yeah,
it work. And unless you're ready to evangelize it or put it down in format where people
sure.
can read about it, I've not seen it, right? I've not seen it. But don't get me started on preference centers, because I actually dislike preference centers. I actually think they're fairly worthless for many brands to have, because like you said, majority of them don't use it and majority of them don't honor it. And what's even funnier is that they put the update your preferences right next to usually the unsubscribe in the 2-point font at the bottom of the email.
Right,
They never actually ask for you to update it, because people's life change. Your life has changed over the last 16 years, or even the last 5 years, and so has mine. But
right.
don't get me started on it. But I think of the word blast, right? And I think of like any sort of connotation to sending email. And I think it's really, and again, I'm going to go out on a limb when I say this, the
Okay.
purists, the email purists, the people that are vocal out in our industry that are like, never say it, wag your finger at it. And I've kind of done a little bit, not 180. I've done maybe about a 138, right, degree turn on the use of that term, right? Because it I'm not going to sit here and stand up on a soapbox and tell people to stop saying it, right? So let's talk about a little bit about when people use that term, whether they're at C-level, director, VP level. Um, and you've had it done. I'm sure you had in your career. I know I have. When they're like, "Can we just send another blast out?" Do you
Mhm.
stop and try to educate people on that, or are you kind of a little bit like me, like, well, let's talk about what that means, right, Mister or Mrs. Executive, type of thing.
I think at this point, I'm kind of like, nah, I'll just,
Well,
right, like, let's talk about what it means. But
yeah,
my question is always, do people who use the word blast really get email?
right. True. True.
Right? So it's like, whether they're an executive or whether they're a marketing manager, it doesn't matter. I
Right.
do have a question of like, so if you're referring to it as blasts, Do you
Mhm.
actually understand the channel? Do you understand how powerful and sophisticated it can actually be? Or
Mhm.
is it just the lowest common denominator? It's cheap, it's
Mhm.
fast. So we're
Mhm.
just going to send e-blasts for the
Yeah.
sake of, random acts of marketing.
Right. Right. Think about this for a second. I often think that people believe that they understand email marketing because they have an inbox or three inboxes or how they do specific things. So, oftentimes I find that they don't understand the intricacies or the difficulties that are happening to actually make the the program worked, right? I wrote a blog post and I have a list of 153 things that email marketers are responsible for. And what's really interesting is there's a lot, right? And when you ran Sears email program, there's a lot, right? Tons of moving parts. But I think you're right. I think, there has to be a slow education. You can't come out and take off the gloves and think you're just going to go out there and try to educate everybody. I often ask the question when someone uses the term let's send an e-blast. That's just maybe something that they're ingrained with, right? In
Mhm.
their head over their career as being executive or moving up, and that it doesn't mean anything negative to them, right? And they probably don't use it to insult you. I
Right.
think they just probably use it to say, they could say, let's send a blast, and it could be the most segmented, most whatever. Or they might follow up with, let's send a blast and let's use our 12 different segments or whatever, or use content and individualized based off of behavior, blah, 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 blah. So
Mhm.
I think that there's a lot of education, but I certainly am not going to be the one that pounds my fist on the table and says, don't do it, right? Don't use that term. It's a bad term. I'm probably going to get a lot of comments or hate mail from people from what I'm saying because I am changing my tune. So give me an example of one of the most complex emails you've ever sent. You don't have to give me the results, um, but that would constitute someone saying, "Hey, Courtney, let's send a blast." But man, it was a complex send. Do you have an
Um,
example of that?
yeah, sure. So essentially, we worked with the analytics team
Mhm.
and utilized their RFM models. And based on the results from the RFM models,
Mhm.
essentially, and this was incredibly complex, and it included having to build our own content repository. So anyone
Yeah.
listening, this is not a fast thing to do. But anyway,
Right.
we had a content repository where we had everyone put in all of their content promotions, whatnot. And then
Mhm.
based on the RFM models, we would deliver, there were what, a hero and maybe 4 modules underneath. All of
Mhm.
that would populate dynamically based on their RFM scores. So if you were interested in subject A and I was interested in subject B, that's, our
Mhm.
hero would change accordingly based on the dynamic content in the content repository. But then also
Mhm.
our individual modules or slices below would
Yeah.
also change out based on that. And as your models changed, so
Yeah.
would content.
And that works when you've got a tremendous amount of categories or SKUs or whatever that drive your email program. And for those that are B2C, right? I don't care if you sell socks or clothes or shoes or refrigerators or whatever, right? There's all these different categories. And so the use of RFM models inside your email to have this, like you said, content repository makes that email a little bit more personalized and makes
Yeah.
it a little bit more like, hey, we know what you've done before in the past. And in some cases, some people will be like, oh, just whip this thing up, man, and get it out the door, right? It's not easy, right?
It's not easy. But
It's
I also think, not to cut you off, but
yeah, go
I
ahead.
also think, because I work with a lot of clients now who run email programs, and I think the thing that I see the most
Yeah.
is companies want to push content out.
Yep.
They don't want, they want to push out the content that they want their customer base. This is both B2B and B2C. They want
Mhm.
to push out the content that they think everyone should hear about.
Yeah.
But then they're complaining to me because click-through rates are dropping, conversion rates are dropping. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, has the subscriber ever actually given you any sign that they're interested in that topic? And this could be anything from financial services to retail
Yeah.
to hospitality. It doesn't matter what the industry is. They're all doing it.
Yeah.
But then they complain about the results.
Well, the thing is I always look at is this is I've said this for years and years and years. You're not in charge of your email program. Your subscribers are. They're telling you what they want to see, or they should be telling you what they want to see. And if they're not doing that, then there's ways to reinforce your preference center or your subscription center or your preference, like what they want to receive, and then honor it. Oftentimes I find that brands, like you said, want to push their own agenda, and then like you said, are like, well, wait a minute, like our stuff's going down the toilet. And you're like, well, of course, because we're not doing what they're telling us or asking us or even inferring to us as an email marketer. And that I think has changed over the last 5, maybe 6 years. I think it started with, this COVID and brands, trying to become this different thing to that of their audiences. We also have to understand that our audiences are getting older and things are changing, right? So I've read a lot of stuff around millennials or Gen Xers or, everybody that reads email, and you have to know and understand your audience. It's not easy to get there. I'm not saying that it is, right? Like just whip up this thing and have it done. But we go back and we argue about things in this industry. And I'm gonna state this publicly, and everyone can come after me. We argue about things in this industry that really doesn't make a lot of sense, right? And I've been watching a lot of different things, and we argue or get pissed off about the use of the term blasting an email. And yet we're start talking about the use of AI and email. And I throw my hands up. I'm like, can we please just do the blocking and tackling correctly, right, around all of this, and defocus ourselves on stuff that doesn't make a difference? Um, that was my rant. I apologize, but that's true. I mean, I see that over and over again, and you just want to beat yourself up and bang your head against the wall sometimes. All right, so we're getting close to the end of our time. Believe it or not, it's been some time since we've been chatting, right?
Yeah.
Courtney, you're super smart. You have amazing background. And whether the audience that's listening to this podcast is more interested in how they're going to pitchfork Andrew around the use of the word blast, but you've got a wide variety of people that are newer to this industry, people with um, some years behind them. And then there's people who like you been doing this in a very complex manner. What would you want to say to people? I mean, we've titled this "To Blast or Not to Blast," but your experience is vast. So tell me, what would be the key takeaways that you'd want people to learn from this?
I think the biggest takeaway is test.
Yeah,
Always test, right? I don't care about the word blast. I care about the act of blasting,
yeah,
right? So if that's what you've been doing, just batching and blasting
mhm,
forever,
yeah,
okay, great, continue that. But then create another segment, right? Do a 50-50. Test it against more personalized content.
yeah,
See what happens,
yeah,
right? There is a place and time for the blast.
yeah.
There's also a place and time to hyper personalize and hyper focus on content.
Right.
So to me, it's test, use data,
Yeah,
right? Always use data to make decisions. A
yeah,
lot of the C-suite will ask you to do what they think you should do. But guess what? A lot of the people in the C-suite don't actually understand the channel. They don't
mhm,
understand what you're trying to do. It's
mhm,
very difficult to argue with data.
yep. That's awesome. I'm going to add on to two things from my key takeaways. I love your statement. I don't care about the word blast. I care about what you blast. A lot of people would say, roll their eyes and go, oh, Courtney or oh, Andrew, I've heard this term test, right? I should be testing. And sometimes I don't know where to start. I don't know how to begin. I don't know how much testing I should do. And I would say, don't think of it as an ominous thing. Think of it as starting small, right? When you became an email marketer, when you got a new job, or when you get a new car, you test out certain things, right? How things drive, and the little stuff actually makes a difference. Um, don't feel as if test is something that's ominous. Contact Courtney, contact me. we'll help you, or at least give you some guidance around how you should start. My other key takeaway is, can we please, and this is something from me to everybody listening, for all of the industry experts or thought leaders or expertise, can we please stop focusing on stuff that doesn't matter? The word blast, right, means it may insult you, but a lot of people use it. So get off the high horse and stop trying to use that as a crutch to say they shouldn't be saying it, or even engage with people that use the words email is dead. Just stop. Can we please focus on stuff that's going to make a huge difference in our industry, that's going to move that needle? And you've moved the needle throughout your career, Courtney, and so have I, right? And I don't, maybe now, I don't want to engage in debates that make no sense. And by the way, everyone's using AI, right? You don't need to attend a conference or a session on AI. You've been using it for years. Look, as always, I tell everybody, we're going to put up your deets, Courtney, where they can get a hold of you, especially on LinkedIn. Thank you for continuing to talk to me after 16 years and working with me. I know that's a tough thing. You're awesome. You're super smart. I cannot wait to see the reactions of this. Get a hold of Courtney if you've got questions. Get a hold of me if you've got questions. I really appreciate you taking the time, Courtney, today to spend some time with me and at least give our audience something to think about. So thank you.
Pleasure as always. Let's do this again in another 16 years.
Let's, 16. I was thinking like maybe 16 weeks, 16 months.
How about this? Let's see what happens between now and 16 years from now.
Right, exactly.
Boy, that would
I'll
be
be
a
pretty
different
old by
conversation.
then. I'll be pretty old. Thanks again, Courtney, and thank you to everybody who continues to support, listen, watch, and engage, and email never sleeps. Until next time, everybody, keep doing what you're doing, but try something different. See ya.